Positionality. In what ways does positionality affect the creative user audience experience in your own practice? What is positionality? The social and political context that creates your identity. My positionality. I am a middle-aged, middle-class, straight, British, white mother, very average. However, I am also dyslexic, I am an LGBTQ+ ally, I consider it important to understand others' views and fight for those people who are sometimes unseen or unheard. I've been a single mum, have a neurodivergent household, I have worked with vulnerable women and unpaid carers. All these things and more affect who I am, what I fight for, and my positionality. How does my positionality affect my own art practice? Sketching is my current main art practice, using pen and watercolour, although I'm always evolving. I have an interest in social history and am politically aware. Within my sketchbooks, I document my life and things that I think are historical. I try to create and evoke a feeling of time and place, indulging my love of social history and perhaps being part of it. I realised in my 40s the enjoyment of art could be about the process and memory and not just the outcome. I've always worried that watercolour is seen as a bit chocolate boxy, a lesser medium used for sketches before a masterpiece, a feeling I'm still trying to shake. Sometimes I paint controversial subjects. Last year I painted this political canvas. In my research, I looked at British politics and socialism and the work of John Ruskin. He taught art free to workers in London. His priority was the process and looking and noticing the world. He was a socialist and part of the arts and crafts movement. I share his ethos. With my love of social history, I decided to research war artists. When internet searching, I got a list of men. I liked the work of Edward Ardazone. I was interested to compare my work to his. He too documented life, both in the war and after it. When searching women war artists, I came across a lady called Dora Meeson. What interested me about her was her design work for the women's suffrage. A part of history, as a woman, it's important not to forget. I diverge at this point briefly into data bias and gender. That also links to my positionality. To quote Caroline Creda-Perez, most data collected globally is based on men. The day I was researching Dora Meeson, Trump had won the American election. I decided to create my own illustration. Being controversial as a practicing artist is a battle of pleasing your audience and using your art to support your views. And those views are created from your positionality. It's a fine line to balance, but I sketch things important to me so that my sketchbooks are authentic. I decided as part of my research to unpack my own art journey. I used an analogy of a snakes and ladders board to help me plot events. Gail, my art teacher in adulthood, built up my confidence. She believed sketching should be the basis of any art, as it made you look at the world, really look, as Ruskin had taught in his classes in the 1900s, and now I teach this too. My first experience of art was seeing book illustrations as a child. Those of Beatrix Potter, Shirley Hughes, Cicely Mary Barker and Edward Ardazone were some of my favourites. These books reflect the household I was brought up in, with teachers as parents. I love that Shirley Hughes captures the sense of time and place within her work, evoking my own childhood. It was important to her to get very young children to read. She says, "What I want children to do is linger, turn the page, see themselves as a reader long before they can read. Important to me being a dyslexic and a late reader." In her book, The Lion and the Unicorn, she talked of recalling her own experience of the war. And I remembered then that last year I illustrated a book for a 95-year-old lady whose story was based on her own experiences of being an evacuee. It was a pleasure to work on. When looking at my own art journey, I looked at ADHD and dyslexia and the part it might have played. I found research that highlighted the high percentage of dyslexia in art students compared to non-art students. I looked at the stages of art development and explored when we lose the sense of creating for the joy of the process. Victor Lowerfield said, "For children, art is a way of learning and not something to be learned." I love that. In our art development, at the age of 11 to 14 is when the result of the work becomes more important than the process. Picasso said every child is an artist. The only problem is how to remain an artist once we grow up. As I've got older, I know the importance of play, so I set myself a task to play with no expectation, something I do when I'm creatively stuck. I'm lucky I found my joy in sketching, which for me is very much about enjoying the process. It never really is about a perfect sketch, but about a perfect memory. And that memory and that sketch is always reflecting my positionality. My sharing of sketches on social media has given me work that follows my interests. I suspect my audience demographic is similar to mine, sharing a positionality and a point of view. Recent commissions reflect that. I try to maintain the joy in the process of all that I do. I remind myself regularly to enjoy the journey. I started this research a little confused, researching all sorts of things that I haven't used. I feel that has enriched my research journey and helped me to unpick my positionality and its effect on my work and audience. I'm always learning. My own mother influenced me, now my own daughters are my educators. I can see how we are all rounded by life experience and work, not just the constructs of who we were born as. That is reflected in my work and values at the age of 51. In the book Flow, The Psychology of Discovery and Invention, he says creativity is rarely a sudden insight or light bulb moment. It comes after years of hard work. My positionality of age and my experience enables me to reflect on my own creative journey and allows me to help others on theirs. My art practice of sketching and being authentic means the work I am offered reflects all that I love.